Begin the Gemara today on Daf Chafei Amud Aleph, the second line from the top of the Yamud. This Gemara is continuing what it spoke about before. The Mishnah said the halacha of Nidrei Havoi. When a person makes a neder and he says something which is nonsense, the t'nai of his neder, he says, if I did not see the number of people that are Kiyatzim Mitzrayim, then the neder should take effect. What did he really mean? If I did not see many people together, he's just exaggerating and saying Kiyatzim Mitzrayim, but really he saw a big number of people, so therefore the neder does not take effect. But then the Gemara asked on this, how do we know to interpret his neder that he meant human beings? And therefore we have to say that what he said is nonsense and it was exaggeration. Maybe all he meant to say is that he saw tons of ants crawling around. And that's actually possible, that he saw millions of ants that are like the number of Yetzim Mitzrayim. And therefore his neder does not take effect because he actually saw this. So the Gemara answered, no, when a person makes a neder, it doesn't matter what he's thinking in his heart. We have to also look at the language of the neder. The way we interpret a neder is the actual lashon that he said. When a person speaks about Yetzim Mitzrayim, that lashon does not refer to ants. It refers to human beings. And therefore the hasber why it's not a neder is because it's nidrei havoi, because it's an exaggeration. So now on this concept, we're on the top of Chafei Amud Aleph. On this concept, next page, the Gemara will ask a few questions. So the Gemara, Valdaite de nafshe, person thinking something himself different than what other people are thinking. Is it not common? Does it not happen? Can we not say that the shvu of a person means that and not what everyone else is thinking regarding what this language means? But we learned in the Braisa as follows: when a person has to swear, and this is in a bezdin, when a person has an argument with his friend regarding a money matter, and he has to swear that his claim is right. So the bezdin has to say to him as follows: you should know, we're not having you swear on whatever conditions you may be thinking to yourself in your heart. We want to make sure that this person is going to swear about the actual subject of the claim, and that he's not thinking that his shvu is something else than what he's actually saying. So not what you're thinking, ela al datenu, rather your shvu should be based on our opinion, or the way we understand Yeshua, or there's another gears here, which is al das hamokim, al das bezdin, and the das of the bezdin. So what is it? Why do we have to give him this introduction before he makes the shvua? Why do we have to tell him not what you're thinking, but what the bezdin is thinking? La fuke mai. What is this coming to exclude? Lav, don't you think? La fuke. This comes to exclude where the person might be thinking to himself. A person comes and says that you owe me $1,000, and his friend says, "Yeah, I paid you $1,000." What did he pay him? And then he swears he's ready to make a shvur that he paid him $1,000. So the asik luhu is kundri. This person might be thinking to himself, "I gave you 1,000 tokens," and that when I say I'm swearing I gave you $1,000, I meant 1,000 tokens, or I gave you $1,000 monopoly money or something else. That's what he's thinking to himself. He's not thinking serious. So therefore, we say to him that he really paid the money. V'asik lahain. What's going to saying over here? Just a second. V'asik lahain shmazuzi, and he's just referring to these iskundri, this monopoly money, whatever tokens, and he's calling it money, and that's why he's making the shvur. So now, since the Bezdin has to tell him this, that al da'atenu, that you're swearing, thinking of what we understand from your words, that we're discussing here money, we're not discussing monopoly money. Meklal, from this we can understand the ovid inish, that it is common for a person, the mishtaba adaita the nafshay, that when he makes a shvuah, what did he really mean? He meant what he's thinking. And his words do not mean what they sound like necessarily. It could also mean something else, that the way he's thinking of these words. So the Gemara loy. That's not what that Mishnah is saying. That's not the reason why we give him this introduction before he makes the shvuah that you're swearing on the das of the bezdin. But rather, la fuke mekanya de Rava. This is coming to exclude the story that happened with Rava when Rava was a judge in a din Torah, the story of the cane by Rava. What's the story that happened with the cane? Ahu gavra, there was an individual. Zuzi. He was trying to collect a zuzi from money from his friend, and he didn't want to pay. Also, they came to a din Torah to Rava. So the malve, the lender, says to the loive, the borrower, pay me. So the borrower says, Praticha, I paid you already. So Rava says to this individual, Im kain zil ishtabale de parate. Go and swear that you paid him. So as the Ran points out, I think it is, so the Shainim may very say, that it was speaking here about a case of a Maida b'miktsas. Maida b'miktsas, he only admitted that he paid partially, didn't pay the full thing, so then in Atayra, you have to make a shvuah. Truth is, even if you completely deny it, that you know, owe a penny, mid-rabbanan, there's what's called shvuas heses. But as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, this person ended up making a shvuah holding a sefer Torah in his hands. And that's a very severe shvuah, which is minat Torah when he's a maida b'miktsas. So if so, the simple pshat in the Gemara here is that he was only admitting to part, so he's a maida b'miktsas. So what happened? This person went out of the bezin, and Azal he went, va'aisi kanya, he walks out back into the bezin with a cane. He needs a cane to support himself. But v'yav zuzi begavei, he placed the money that he owed this person inside the cavity of the cane. And then v'hav mistamach v'azal, and he faked it. He's walking and he's leaning on this cane. And v'asi alei beidin, and with this he walked into the bezin. Amalei lemalves. Now he has to swear, so he tells the malve, the lender, why wouldn't you hold this cane for me, please, for a moment? And then Nasav Sefer Torah, he took into his hands a Sefer Torah to swear, Ve'ishtaba the pare kol madahavale biyade. And he says, all the money I had that I owed you, I gave you. So wow. So who malve, this lender, Rogas, he got so angry. Look, this guy swears so falsely and with a Sefer Torah in his hands, he got angry. The Tavre lahu kanye, so he threw the cane down, and it broke, and the money that was inside spilled out to the ground. And it turned out that when he actually swore, it was true. The money that he owed the Malva was in his hands. This story is why the Bezdin has to give an introduction. They don't play any tricks. And when you're making the shvuah the way we understand that you said you paid him the loan, not that he's holding something in his hands now, but you actually paid him the loan. But the point the Gemara is trying to say is that you can't say there's any source from here that when a person makes a shvuah that he could be thinking something for himself and his shvuah is different than the way we usually understand it. No, the person doesn't. The lashon of the shvuah means what it means, that you gave money, not that you gave tokens. And therefore, before going back to what we were talking about over here, when a person makes a shvuah that I saw kiyatzim mitzrayim, it means human beings. It doesn't mean that he saw millions of ants. Gemara brings from another case. Vakati, and still, I could ask you, is it not true that when a person swears, he could be thinking something himself different than what the language sounds like? Vatanya, but we learned in a braisa. We find by Moshe Kashesh Bias Yisrael B'Arvis Moav. When Moshe Rabbeinu had Yidden swear to keep the Torah when they were Arvis Moav, right outside Eretz Yisrael. Amaleh, Moshe Rabbeinu told them, "Have Yodim, you should know. Shaloyal daitchem ani mashbiaschem. I'm not having you swear according to your opinion, what you're thinking. El al daiti val dasamokim. But rather what I'm thinking and the Eibush is thinking. Shenem, as we see, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "V'loy itchem levatchem v'goyim," not with you alone. So the simple pshat of that pasuk is that he's referring to future generations. He's saying that not only am I making this shvuah with you, but it will be with also all future generations. But Gemara here dashens is that it means not just with your thoughts alone, what you're thinking to yourself, but rather with what the Eibishter wants. That's what the shvuah is about. Now, so the question is, why did Moshe have to clarify this? Why is Moshe Rabbeinu telling this to the Yidden? Lav, don't you think? This is what he was saying to them. Dilme avdison, or the Bach is going to say avrison. Mili, maybe you will do or you will transgress on matters vamrison, and then you'll say al datenu, that when we swore it was what we were thinking, not what Moshe Rabbeinu meant to say. So Mishmachi Amalu, and therefore what he said to them is al daiti, that you're swearing with my das, with what I'm saying the shvuah is about. So lafuke mai, what does this come to exclude? Lav, you think lafuke da siku shmal avodas kechavim meleka, that when they made the shvuah, instead of when they're swearing about the Eibishter, they were thinking in their mind that aleka refers to avodah zara. They're thinking in their mind something else, that they're dedicating themselves to something else, God forbid, not the Eibishter. So what do we see from here? Meklal da'avadinish the mishtaba daita the nafshay. So I see when a person swears, even though someone else is saying clearly what the shvuah is about, but you could be saying those words, and you could be thinking about something different that's not the simple pshat of those words. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu has to clarify this, that we're swearing, and when we say the Eibishter, we mean the Eibishter and not some other kind of avodah zara. So the Gemara, loy, Avodas kechavim ikre leka. Usually, I'm not going to say when you use any expression that it refers to something else. But over here, because we find that Avodah Zarah is referred to with the term Aleka, so therefore over here, when Moshe Rabbeinu makes them swear in the name of Hashem, it could be that they were thinking about Avodah Zarah. When the pasuk speaks about the Avodah Zarah in Mitzrayim by the Makkis, so it says it uses the term B'chol Lekei Mitzrayim es Shvatim. So therefore, it's possible that a person would say that Aleka means Avodah Zarah. Gemara, if that's the case, so why does Moshe Rabbeinu have to clarify this? Let him just use a different language in the Shvuah. If you're saying that a person, when the language is clear, so that we can't say that the person is thinking something else, so let Moshe Rabbeinu use a language where it's clear. Let him use something else. V'lishba yasayin. Let him have them swear the mekayim misun, that you're going to fulfill mitzvahs. Or kol the bach is going, huh? Where did I skip something? Mitzvahs or call mitzvahs. So yeah, let them have them swear that they're going to fulfill mitzvahs. So now mitzvahs, what else could it be referring to? Right. If they're going to start thinking to themselves something personal, we just said there's no such a thing. So mitzvahs means mitzvahs. So it's Gemara, not necessarily. Mashma mitzvahs hamelech. Even the term mitzvahs could mean something else. Not only that they would be thinking something unusual, but it actually means something else. Mashma mitzvahs hamelech. Maybe mitzvahs means that it refers to the mitzvahs of a king, not the Eibishter. First, the Stam king, that I will fulfill the laws and the commands of a king. Or the other pshat that it says here, it says actually Rabbeinu Gershom over here on the side of the Gemara, that it refers to the mitzvahs of a melech in the Torah. A melech has certain mitzvahs, so maybe he's referring to those mitzvahs. So if so, let it say clearly that I'm swearing with, I'm having the Yidden, Moshe Rabbeinu is having the Yidden swear that they're going to fulfill all mitzvahs. Kol mitzvahs does not refer to the mitzvahs HaMelech, but it refers to all mitzvahs of the Torah. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Mashma mitzvah tzitzis. Kol mitzvahs could be referring to one mitzvah, which is tzitzis. Why? Dam Amar. Master had said, Shkula mitzvah tzitzis connected kol mitzvah shebetayra. The mitzvah of tzitzis is equal. It corresponds to all mitzvahs of the Torah, as it's famous that tzitzis is gematria 600, and then the 8 strings and the 5 knots is 613. Or it also says in the pasuk, "Yisrael Moshe is chartam is kol mitzvahs Hashem." So therefore, kol mitzvahs could be referring to tzitzis.
And if the people at that time, and Moshe Rabbeinu by Hashem, that knew all this,
yeah,
they also know what that meant too.
And a chanami, but still the shvuah is not clear. That's the problem. You say a shvuah and you use an expression, and the language could mean 2 things, so you have to clarify in advance which of the 2 is the shvuah about. V'lishba yasayin. Question still is, let Moshe Rabbeinu use the following language in the shvuah. Nimekay misan Torah. You'll fulfill Torah. So Torah is Torah. What else is Torah? Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Mashma Torah achas. It could mean only one section of the Torah. Torah has Torah shebiksav and Torah shebal peh. So maybe it refers only to the written Torah or only to the oral Torah. If so, let him use a plural term, that you're going to fulfill both sections of the Torah. Says the Gemara, then it would mean something else. Mashma, it sounds like he's saying Teiras Mincha, Teiras Chatas, Teiras Asham, the language that it uses in the Torah by the Karbanis, Zais Teiras HaMincha, so it's referring to Karbanis, not to anything else. Let him have them swear and use the term Teirais and Mitzvahs. Says the Gemara, it's not going to help because Teirais, Mashma Teiras HaMincha. Teiras, as we said, would be referring to the different halachas of the Karbanis. Mitzvahs is mashma mitzvahs hamelech. Mitzvahs could be just the mitzvahs of any king, so it's still not clear. Let him have them swear and let him say the mekamisun Torah kula. Let him say you're swearing to fulfill the entire Torah. So the entire Torah does not mean Torahs. The Torahs that are the expressions of Torahs that it says regarding mincha, chatas, ayla, but it means literally to fulfill the whole Torah. So that's clear. Says the Gemara, no, Torah kula is also not clear. Torah kula mashma avodas kechavim. That could be referring not to serve avodah zarah, not including all the mitzvahs. Where do we see that the whole avodah zarah means Torah kula? The Tanya we learned in Abraisa chamur avodas kechavim. Avodas kechavim, serving avodah zarah is so severe. Shekol hakofer ba kilud ma'ide b'Torah. Person that denies the existence of avodah zarah, that is equivalent to being ma'ide the entire Torah. So therefore, and on the other hand, a person that, God forbid, is serving avodah zarah, it's like he's being over on the entire Torah. So Torah kula could be referring to avodah zarah. Finally, the Gemara asks, "V'lish ba yasayin the mekamisun avodas kechavim ve Torah kula." This would cover it. If Moshe Rabbeinu would say that the Shvuah is about not to serve Avodah Zarah and also the entire Torah. That's clear. Inami, or Moshe Rabbeinu could clearly spell out and say, Sheish, Meyes, V'shalish, Esher mitzvahs. 613 mitzvahs. That's what the Shvuah is, that you're going to keep them. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to give them the whole introduction that it's Al Dateinu V'al Das Hamokim? Elom.
What's the difference if he gives the introduction or he starts?
Well, let's see the Gemara's answer. Let's see. And for the Gemara, Elo Moshe Rabbeinu milse deloy trichen akat. Instead of in the Shvuah itself to spell out exactly what the Shvuah consists of, and he would have to spell it out in a way that it's clear for them, instead he just gave them the introduction. Listen, whatever's going to be said, the language that's being used here is clear, and it means what I'm thinking it means, and not that you should think something unusual about this, that it means something. Not even something unusual. Not that it means something else in the lashon, but it's my lashon. So Moshe Rabbeinu gave that introduction. That's it, and then it's not necessary to use a specific lashon of sheish meis or shleish esra. Okay, the point is that there's no raya to the Gemara was trying to ask over here. Maybe when a person makes a shvuah, he can think something different than what the shvuah means, and that's included in the shvuah. It doesn't work that way. The rule that comes out from this whole Gemara regarding Nedarim and shvuah is, when a person makes a shvuah, it has to be piv v'liboy shavin. A person can't make a shvuah and say one thing, and then in his heart is thinking something different, and say, oh, I meant something else. When a person makes a shvuah, we say, if this is the language you used, so then this is what you were thinking about. And the shvuah does not refer to something else. Okay. The next case to mention in the Mishnah was a person makes a shvuah which is havoi, which is it's nonsense. It doesn't take effect at all. The person says, I make a shvuah if it's not true that I saw a snake that's as big as the beam that's used in the olive press. Massive snake. So that can't be. There's no such a massive snake, and therefore the whole thing is just foolish. There's no such a shvuah. Okay, when I taught the Mishnah, I misinterpreted a word that I saw in the Ran, but here we'll see this word in the Gemara, taruf. It means something else than what I said yesterday. Let's see. So the Gemara, V'loi, isn't there such a large snake? There was this snake, the Havya B'shnei Shavvar Malka, that was in the times of Shvar Malka, which we know was in the time of Shlomo Melech. So it was by her, or by him. Ramu leit leisa arvasa de tivna. They placed in front of the snake 13 bundles of hay. Ubala yasain, and the snake was able to swallow this all. So it must have been a massive, massive snake. So a person says, I saw a snake that's as big as the beam in the olive press. It's possible. It's not necessarily an exaggeration. So the shvuah could take effect, or the neder could take effect. Shmuel says, betaruf. What the person meant to say is that the snake that I saw was taruf. Taruf means that the skin of the snake is not smooth. The skin of the snake is ridged. And just like that beam that's used in the olive press, in order to press the olives, it's not a straight beam, but it has these ridges in it. So too the snake that I saw was ridged. And that's something that's unusual. And so the Gemara right away asks, unusual, really? Kul nachashi mitrev tarfi. All snakes are all ridged. Right? That's the skin of the snake. Is not the. Actually, there's two pshatim here in the Gemara. One pshat in the Gemara is that he said he saw like these ridges on it, or the other pshat in the Gemara is, I think Rabbeinu Gershmer says that he said that he saw the snake and the snake had spots on it. So the Gemara asks, you have a lot of snakes that have these spots and speckles on it. So why is this an unusual shvuah or neder? Says the Gemara, agabe taruf kamrina. What he meant to say is, when he's saying that I'm making a neder, like that I saw a snake like this beam in the olive press, the beam in the olive press has these ridges, it's not smooth all around. So the snake is not smooth only on one side, but on its back, on the inside, it is smooth. The skin of the snake over there is smooth. Or if it means the spots, the skin of the snake usually has the spots only on the outside, but on the other side, on its back, it doesn't have those spots. So therefore, if he's saying that he saw a snake like this beam in the olive press, so then that's not true. That's an exaggeration. Okay, there's actually an argument amongst the Poskim about this, because this Gemara is quoted in Shulchan Aruch as it says it in the Mishnah, not the way the Gemara says it. The Gemara says, in Shulchan Aruch it's quoted, the person makes a shvuah that he saw a snake like the beam of an olive press, that shvuah is nonsense. But the Gemara over here explains that's not necessarily nonsense. You could see such a large snake. It's just referring to the ridges. But so the pshat over here, the Taz says, what the Gemara is saying is, when you say this shvuah, that I saw Kekairis Beis Habad, this is what it means. Kekairis Beis Habad doesn't just mean in the size, how large it is, but it also includes in its shape, the way it's shaped, the fact that it has these ridges in it, and therefore the shvuah is considered to be nonsense. Fragt the Gemara, if that's the point of it, the reason why this Shavua is, or this Neder, his Havoi, is because of the ridges, so Velisni Taruf, let it say clearly in the Mishnah, the person made a Neder, that he saw a snake which is Taruf, that has these ridges all around and around on its skin, and that's not true, so and that's why it's not a good Neder. Says the Gemara, Milsa Gavorche Kamashmalon. While the Mishnah is trying to teach us the halacha of a neder, that this is nonsense, it also is teaching me on the side another halacha, the kairis beisabad, that the beam that's used in the olive press, gaboy taruf, that the gav of it, that even on the inside of it, it's also has ridges on it. It has to have ridges on both sides. What's the relevance to know this? It's relevant to know if you in a sale, if you buy from somebody this beam to use for an olive press. Saying to you, the person is selling the beam for an olive press, to his friend, if it has ridges also on the back of it, so then this is acceptable. In other words, the sale will take effect because this is what he intended to buy. That's what if you're saying, I'm selling you a beam from the olive press, it means it has to have ridges all around. If it's not going to have ridges even on its back, then the sale won't take effect because this is not a proper beam for the olive press. So it's teaching you derech agav this halacha regarding the sale of selling a beam for the olive press. Okay, the Gemara, the Mishnah here, that is, continues with the third category of those kinds of Nedarim that it said in the beginning of the Perek that do not take effect. You don't even need a heter of a chacham for them. What is this? Nidreish gogois. Person makes a neder and there's a mistake in his neder. What's the mistake? So the Mishnah describes two different types of nidreish gogois. First is, a person says, Im achalti v'im shasisi. I make a neder that peiris, or whatever it is, bread, should be also for me to eat if I had eaten or if I drank in the past. So that's his condition. So while he made the neder, he thought that he did not eat and did not drink, so therefore the neder should take effect. But then, then he reminds himself that he did eat, he did drink. While he was saying this condition in his neder, he didn't remember that. So when he said this condition, it was a mistake, he didn't realize. Or the same thing also if he says in the future. He says that I make a neder that something should be asa to me if sha'ani oichel v'shani shaisa. If in the future I will eat or I will drink. And then v'shachach v'achal v'shasa. He went and ate and drank, but while he ate and drank, he forgot about the fact that this was a condition for his neder. So then he doesn't realize that he just fulfilled his condition. So because he didn't realize, so then the neder does not take effect. So he didn't eat and drink with the intention that his neder should take effect. He just forgot. He forgot that he made this as a condition to his neder, so it doesn't take effect. So these are the two examples of nidrish gagas, one going on the past, while he's saying the neder, he forgot. And there was a mistake then, and one going on the future, when he's fulfilling the condition, and the neder should take effect at that moment, but if he forgets, it doesn't take effect. Mishnah continues with other examples. Alma person says, Kaina mishtinanasli, he makes a neder that his wife should not have any anah from him. Why? Shegomva es kisi v'shehiksa es b'ni, because she stole my wallet or she hit my son. That was the reason and the condition for why he wants the neder to take effect. V'noida finds out shaloi yikasai, she did not hit the son. V'noida shaloi gomva, and she did not steal the wallet. So this is a mistake. So the neder does not take effect. Person sees. So the Tanai did not happen, so therefore it doesn't take effect.
So it's not a mistake.
Huh?
It's not a mistake.
Okay. Ra'ison, we had before that the person said, I want the neder to take effect anyways. I mean, if the person is saying that I only want the neder to take effect if my wife, so then obviously it turns out that it didn't happen b'chlal. So then the whole thing is a mistake, right? So, but he said he wants the neder to take effect. Why? Because of this and this. And then it turns out that she never did this. So therefore, even though he says he wants to take the neder to take effect anyways, but it's a mistake, and the neder does not take effect. I believe that's the pshat over here. See, maybe the Gemara later speaks about it. Okay. The next case it says over here is Ra Aisan Eichlin Tainim. Person sees people eating from his fig tree. They're eating his figs. So V'ama, he immediately says he can't stop them. So what does he say? Harei aleichem carbon. This fig should be asa to you. I make a neder that's asa for you like a carbon. So he wants like this, they'll stop eating. What happens? He gets closer. V'nimtza aviv ve'echav. He sees who is eating over here. It's his own father. And it's his brothers that were here eating from his tree. So what happens? So this neder is a mistake. He didn't mean to make the neder with these conditions, that it's his own father. Hayu iman. So according to some, you go this hayu. This is like a new thing, or you got this vehayu. If hayu iman acherem. So together with his father, with his brother, there were other people there as well. Now, so for his father and brother, he doesn't mind if they were eating from the figs. But the other strangers that came and joined along in the party, for them, he doesn't want them to eat. So now, part of his neder was a mistake. He didn't want it to take effect. And part of the neder, he wants to take effect. What happens now? Beishamai yomrim hein mutarin. Beishamai say that the father and the brothers, they are mutar to eat. Now for them, the neder was a mistake, but umashima masurim. The other people, the strangers that are there, the neder will take effect and they'll be aser. Still say elu ve'elu mutarim. That the neder will not take effect for any of them, they're all going to be mutar. And the basis of what Basil is saying is, this is a concept that we'll see here, the Gemara will speak about it, it's called neder shehuta miktsasei huta kulei. A neder that part of it doesn't take effect, none of it takes effect. And the reason for this is, either it's because you learn it out from the pasuk, because when the pasuk talks about keeping a neder, the language the Torah uses k'chol hayotzim mipiv yaseh. All that comes out of your mouth, you should fulfill. So if not all that came out of your mouth is a neder, only half, there's no neder at all. Or another pshat is more simply, without the pasuk. When a person makes a neder, he's only making the neder with the intention that his words will entirely be true and a neder. But if part of it is not a neder, he didn't intend for it to be a neder in such a kind of circumstance. So therefore the whole neder falls apart and it's all mutter. That's Basil's chiddush. Tana we learned in the Braise. No, Mishami doesn't hold of this concept. Neder shouldn't be discussed in the Tekula. It's what part? Yeah. No, he doesn't hold of that drasha. So Tana and a Braise we learned Kishem shenidrish gagis mutarin. Just like a neder that was a mistake is allowed. Kach shvuas gagis mutaris. So too regarding a shvua that there was a mistake, it's also mutar. Hey chidami shvuas gagis. What is an example of a shvua that you're saying something and you thought it's one way, but it turns out to be another way, and therefore it's a shegig. Kagain Rav Kahana and Rav Asi. Like what happened with Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, these were both students that learned from Rav. And they were both arguing what Rav said regarding a certain halacha. One of them said, Shvuasa dahachi amar Rav. I can swear that this is what Rav said the halacha is. V'hadeina amar Shvuasa dahachi amar Rav. I can swear that this is what Rav said. Each one remembers clearly in his mind that this is what Rav says. So even if Rav did not say the way he says it, but this is not called a Shavuos Sheker, because he's making the neder really under the impression that this is what Rav said. And if it turns out that it wasn't true, so then it's a total mistake. But it's not considered to be a Shavuos Sheker, similar to what we said before regarding a neder. The Ran explains that the chiddush of what the Gemara is saying here is, usually in the Mishnah, when it spoke about the neder that a person made which was a mistake, there's nobody that was arguing with you. There's nobody that was trying to correct you. The person himself, he's saying, if I ate in the past on that condition, I make a neder now that this should be asa to me. And he forgot. He forgot that he did eat in the past, but no one's trying to correct him. So in such a case, since it's a mistake, the neder doesn't take effect. Chiddush over here is, Rav Kahana and Rav Asi are arguing with each other. Rav Kahana is saying to Rav Asi, you're making a mistake. Rav said so and so. Even when one is correcting the other, nevertheless, when you think so firmly in your mind that this is what it is, and you make a shvua on this, it's not called a shvua sheker. This is a shvua which is a shegig. It's a mistake. It said in the Mishnah, when he saw people eating, and then it was the brothers and the father, and there was other people. So there was the machlokes of Beishamai and Basilol regarding whether you say that once part of the neder does not take effect, or I say the rest of the neder doesn't take effect as well. So before the Gemara explains what the Mishnah is speaking about, it brings another Mishnah that talks about a similar concept. Nan hasam. So we learned in the Mishnah later that it says that you can open up a neder, a person said, by making him aware of Shabbos and Yom Tov. What is this referring to? Let's say a person makes a neder, I'm not going to eat meat for 30 days. So now that includes Shabbos and Yom Tov. So you won't be able to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos or Simchas Yom Tov. So when you want to be mat to the person's neder, so the Chacham can say to the person, did you realize that on Shabbos and Yom Tov there's a mitzvah, obligation to eat meat, and you're not going to be able to eat meat? And the person says, no, I didn't realize. So that's a Pesach to his neder. Now, in the beginning, they used to say, what happens when you make a Pesach for a person to allow him to eat Shabbos and Yom Tov meat? So they would say that so those days of Shabbos and Yom Tov, so the neder is now going to be off, allowed. But the neder regarding the rest of the days of the week, for that you don't have a Pesach. For that, there's no reason why the neder should go off. And then Rabbi Akiva came and taught, neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kulai. Once part of the neder was permitted, so the rest of the neder is permitted as well. So the whole neder falls apart, and therefore there's no neder at all. So here, this is a similar halach to what it said in our Mishnah. But the Ram points out it's not exactly the same, because in our Mishnah, the person that made the neder, the whole neder was made, the part of the neder that falls off was a part that the whole neder was made by mistake. He Pasha didn't notice that it's his father and brothers. Right? So therefore over there, you don't even need a heter b'chlal. You don't even need a pesach for the neder b'chlal. Over here, it's talking about a different situation. Over here, the person made a neder not to eat meat for 30 days. He didn't realize that on Shabbos Yom Tov there's a mitzvah to eat meat. No. So therefore, the neder that he made in the beginning was a full neder. Elamai, now you're coming and you're letting him know. Do you know that there's a mitzvah? If you would have realized that there's a mitzvah to eat in Shabbos Yom Tov, so over here you need a heter. But still, the point remains the same. That you see, Rabbi Akiva is saying the same thing that Beis Hillel is saying. Once the neder is partially allowed, the rest of the neder is allowed as well. So now here the Gemara is going to bring a machlokes between Abaye and Rava, not Abaye and Rava, sorry, Rabbe and Rava. In what circumstance do we say that if part of the neder falls apart, the whole neder is mutter? Okay, I think we're going to leave this for tomorrow, Mitzvah. It continues down to the next summit over there.